Greetings, folks. I hope you are enjoying Netreo NUGGET 2023. My name is Rene Sanchez, and I am a support engineer for Netreo. I have been with the company for about 3 years now, and today I will be presenting an in-depth overview of our auto configuration rules feature. As you know, these sessions are pre-recorded. However, I will be available on the chat if you have any questions. Now, what are auto configuration rules? To me, I like to describe these rules as a form of automation and intelligence that Netreo has to set properties on devices based on matching attributes. They typically come into play at device onboarding. However, they can also be ran against devices that are already monitored in Netreo. We won't go too deep into the device onboarding side. Instead, we will focus on devices that are already in Netreo and how they can leverage the power of auto configuration rules to keep their devices in compliance. Without further ado, let's get started. Administration, change devices, auto configuration parameters. This is how you would navigate to the auto configuration parameter page. And basically, auto configuration rules are a set of rules that run against a device's attribute. And if these rules match, then specific actions are taken to configure the device. This helps with compliance. This helps ensure that proper monitoring is in place for the different types of devices you may have in your infrastructure. A good example of usage of these auto configuration rules is, let's take Windows servers, for example. In your environment, you may have 100 or so Windows servers, right? But you have different types of Windows servers. You have database servers, you have web servers, application servers, Exchange servers, right? And with leveraging the power of auto configuration rules, you can actually automatically assign subtypes to these different types of servers, right? You would assign the subtype for Microsoft SQL to your database servers. You would assign the subtype, the IIS subtype, to your web servers. You would assign the Exchange subtype to your mail servers, right? Other good examples of this that we see a lot of customers use, the auto configuration rules, are to make sure you have devices in their correct sites. For example, here we have a few auto configuration rules that will assign devices specifically to have them configured with the Cleveland site. Another good example is to have your devices automatically get assigned the correct remote poller, right? This helps ensure that the service engine that is closest or configured to pull the device is correct. That you're not pulling a device from a service engine that is located on the other side of the country, right? You want specific subnets to be pulled by specific service engines, right? So these are just basic examples. I'll go more in depth of how these rules are laid out, but just wanted to give a brief overview of what we're dealing with here. When Netreo is first deployed, it is deployed with a few general auto configuration rules in place. Here, a couple tabs over, I have a fresh system that was recently spun up, and these are the general rules that come built in when a Netreo system is first deployed. And why do we do this? We do this because if customer decides to start onboarding their devices without setting up any auto configuration rules, without these basic rules in place, then all the devices getting added will belong to one category, one functional group, right? There wouldn't be it'll be a little bit disorganized, right? But if we provide at least some general auto configuration rules, then when devices get onboarded, at least there's some sense of organization. A few examples of this that I'd like to just point out is, like, let's just look into the new firewalls and new switches rule that comes built in, right? I have it here already opened up. This is the new firewalls category, right? So basically what this rule does is, when devices get onboarded, right, if they inherit any of these three device types, right, Cisco Firewall PIX, Palo Alto Firewall, then this device will automatically be added to the category new firewalls. Same thing with the switches. If at device discovery, right, these devices inherit any of these device types, Cisco Cat OS, Cisco iOS, Cisco XL, HP Curve switch, then the auto configuration rule will automatically assign the device to the new switches category. Now back to our demo. One of the most important things to understand about auto configuration rules is that order does matter. This is basically like a networking ACL, right? We go one by one, and if it matches, we configure the device with the set property, and then we continue through the list, right? So order does matter. It's important, especially for devices that have a singular property, right? Singular property like category. A category in Netreo, a device can only belong to one category. Therefore, for these kind of properties, it's important to have the more general vague rules up at the top, like Windows Server. Back to our example with Windows servers, you want all devices, all your servers to belong to this category, right? But if you have more specific servers with a more specific function, right, like web servers, database servers, application servers, then those would be at the bottom because you're going to have more specific configurations within these rules at the bottom, right? Example of these configurations, I have them pulled up right here. If your devices are a web server, right, we can check for a TCP port of 443 being open. If it's open and we detect that a service running on the Windows server has the name of IIS within it, then we would add it to the category web servers. Same thing with SQL servers, right? SQL servers being database servers. If we detect that a service running has SQL in the name, then we will add it to the category database servers. As I said before, auto configuration rules are a set of rules that run against the device's attributes, and if the rules match, then a property gets configured. To get a better understanding and be able to modify these rules for your unique infrastructure, it is important to understand these attributes. Back from our list, if we click on Add an Auto Configuration Rule, we'll be presented with this screen. Basically, we have our matching attributes and our device properties that we're going to set. A key difference between the two is that the device attributes accept an actual text, an actual value, right? It is regex capable. For example, we can actually give it the device name, or we can give it a wildcard like .star, and any device name that starts with Dallas will fit this rule. For properties, though, properties are dropdowns that for values that you already have configured in your environment. So when you click on value here, you will only see the sites that you currently have created in your Netreo environment. So I think it's important to go through these lists real quick, device name, in order to get a better understanding of this. So device name is exactly as it sounds. Every device in Netreo has a device name. Device system description, system location are OIDs that we use to get the system description and the sys location. I actually have them pulled up here to give an example. This is an example of a system description of our lab router. As you can see, it pretty much gives us the make and model information and other useful information as well. And we can key off any text here. Sys location is a setting, it's a configuration that is configured on the actual router. So sys location, when we run this OID, we get Dallas back from our lab router. We also have device BGP. If a device has BGP configured, we will detect it, and we can use this as an attribute. Site, if a device belongs to a specific site, device type, subtype, if the device has any subtype, a specific subtype configured, we can use that. TCP open port and UDP open port, we actually go out and scan for open ports on these devices when we're running these rules. And if they have TCP port open, we can use that as well. Auto started Windows services. We touched on this briefly. However, basically what it means is if a Windows server is running these services with a specific name, and the service is set to auto start, because services can also be manual, set to manual. But if it's set to auto start, then we will use that and key off that. Subnet, if a device belongs to a specific subnet. Device attribute, these are key value pairs located on your device administration, and they look like the following. These are just made up that we example for our lab. Support contract 12345, tech support number. You can actually key off these guys when running auto configuration rules. For properties, we have functional groups, sites, categories, device subtypes, device. Right here, you can actually enable or disable a device. That's what this property means. The top four, pretty self-explanatory. User partitions, we have a feature that can limit the accessibility of Netreo to specific for users. So if you have that set up, you can actually use this as a property that you can set. Device onboarding. When devices are onboarding, you can set if they are validated or not. And remote poller, you can set the service engine, the remote poller that you would like to be assigned to this device, to be associated with the device, to do all the polling for it. Now, it's time. We also have the match type, right? The way it works is if we set it to any, we will match this property will be set if any of these three values become true. If any of these three values match, then we will set, in this example, the remote poller to this data center poller. Or the other option is all. That means that all of these three values need to match in order for this rule to be true, and then be able to set the device property here. Okay. Lastly, continue processing next auto configuration rule. The rule condition, mostly by default, we have this set as continue processing the next rule. As I said before, this is like an ACL. We will go through each one by one until we reach the bottom. However, you can stop that on specific scenarios. Like let's say you have a device type, device name. Let's say you're onboarding devices with the word with lab in the device name, right? So anything with lab, let's say you don't care about these. You don't care about these devices. All you want these devices to do is get assigned a category. Let's say lab devices low priority, and then stop processing the next auto configuration rule. At that point, it'll stop processing. It won't keep going through the list. It'll just reach that trigger, get triggered on that rule, and then stop this whole process for that device. Now that we have a better understanding of attributes and properties, let's see this in action. Next, I'd like to spend some time and demonstrate how these rules get applied to devices that are already in Netreo. For the first example, the requirement that I'd like to demonstrate is the creation of a functional group. And inside this functional group, we are going to be adding devices based on their device name, specifically devices that start with Dallas and are switches. Okay, so we're going to be creating a functional group. We're going to be adding these two devices based on a regex expression. And we got to make sure that this device doesn't get added. We just want Dallas S1 and Dallas S2.netreo.net. So first we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a strategic group. Remember, when dealing with auto configuration rules, the drop down for the properties, it will only include strategic groups, for this example, that have been created in Netreo, that exist in Netreo. So for this one, we're going to call it critical Dallas switches. Okay. Critical Dallas switches. And then we're going to go back to our auto configuration rules, and we're going to add a rule. For device name, this one's pretty straightforward. We're going to call it Dallas dash. If I put Dallas that star, this will not fulfill the requirement. Remember, the requirements are to just add these two. If I was to put Dallas dot star, then we would actually add this one as well. So we have to get a little bit more specific. And just looking at these two device names, if we do Dallas dash S, we should be okay. Dallas dash S dot star, that'll be the device name. And the property that we want to set will be the functional group. Functional group, we just created a functional group. So now we just got to find it. We called it critical Dallas switches. Okay, we're going to go ahead and save it. Okay. Now we went ahead and saved it. One thing that I did forget to mention is by default, all these auto configuration rules are enabled. However, you do have the option here to press this stop icon, and it will disable the rule. So whenever the rule runs against a device, it will skip this rule. And in order to enable it, you just have to hit this play icon, and it'll re-enable it as well. So at this point, we have a functional group down at the bottom. Remember, order does matter. However, for groupings, for properties that device can have multiple of, it really doesn't matter, right? For functional groups, a device in Netreo can have multiple functional groups. Therefore, it's at the bottom now, but for this demo, this will be enough. So we're going to go ahead and just save the order. And then we're going to go to the devices. To the devices, we're going to first go to Dallas S1. Dallas S1 currently has 4 strategic groups. right? It's got all devices, app patch 1AM infrastructure, and North America, right? So the way to run the auto configuration rule at the device level is in the device administration, there is a drop down here for auto configuration. It's by default, it's set to never. Setting it, we can set it to run once or run at every repo. If we set it to run once, the moment we rediscover the device, it'll go through the auto configuration rules. If we set it to run every repo, then every time the device gets rediscovered, the auto configuration rules will also kick in. So for this example, we're just going to hit run once, and we're going to save the changes. Okay, so the changes have been saved. Let's just confirm. Okay, auto configuration rule says run once. We currently have 4 strategic groups, so we're going to go ahead and rediscover this device. Go ahead and rediscover them. It takes a little bit sometimes, depending on your environment. But we could also track down the movement if we go to the audit log, and we will see the rediscovery and the auto configuration rules taking place. So we hit here. We can see that the device has been rediscovered and it's running through the auto configuration rules. We go back to the device. So at this point, hopefully enough time has gone by. We refresh the page, and we currently have the critical data switches functional group added to this device. Now remember, our regex expression is supposed to exclude this one. So if we do this one as well. Again, you can track the movement that's happening in the backend by using the audit log and searching for device name. Okay, as you can see, running through the configuration rules. So if we refresh this guy has currently 6. After this, he should remain with 6. So this guy did not get affected. 6. So that's just one example. Another example, I'd like to create a rule that would make sure that the proper devices are in the correct site. As you can see here, I have 2 devices, India R1 and India S1. For some reason, let's just call it user error. The site was incorrectly set to Cleveland, even though this device is located in India. Same thing with this one, incorrectly set to Cleveland, right? So for this, we can use auto configuration rules to keep in compliance and make sure that these devices are in their correct site. So we're going to go ahead and close a few of these tabs. Close this guy, audit log, we can keep it over here. And basically what I'm going to do is just add another rule. And the requirements are any device that's in India that's should be in Bangalore. Okay. So this one, pretty straightforward as well. We're going to key off device name. We're going to call it India. And we're going to do a wildcard.star. Set the property. Well, this time we're going to set the site. Site is going to be Bangalore. Okay. And we're going to save the rule. Now remember, a device can only be added to one site. So for the site property is important that the more specific ones are down below, okay? Alrighty, so now to demonstrate the usage of auto configuration rules, I'm not gonna go through the device administration. We do have a more scalable feature, which we can do this in bulk. So if we go to administration, change devices, rediscover devices. There's a little checkbox right here. There's a little toggle here that says run auto configuration rules, on or off. Okay, so basically the way it works here is we would select everything, and then we will narrow down the devices that we want. We want devices that start with India. Okay, so we have 2 devices. What we would do is we select the devices, we toggle the on right here for run auto configuration rules, and we would have to just rediscover the devices from here. So we go ahead and click here. An immediate rediscovery of 2 selected devices has been queued. Okay. Once again, we can do the same. Copy here. Follow the rediscovery, follow the auto configuration rules. Okay. And if enough time has gone by, we refresh the page and the site should be back to Bangalore. There we are. Site's back to Bangalore. I hope you all have a better understanding of auto configuration rules in general. How they work, how to create them, how to apply them, most importantly, why they are important. As you can see, these rules reduce administration overhead, and they set automated configurations to meet your monitoring requirements. Thank you so much for being a part of my presentation in NUGGET 2023, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations. Have a good evening.